Welcome to the Pixel Retentive Podcast, where we, a business owner and an artist, discuss the business of art and the art of business.
I'm Ross, creative director at Epic Made, and we're the hosts of the Pixel Retentive Podcast, where we share our thoughts on creativity, art, and business. Past guests include Tim Harris of the Paragon NFT Project, Steven DeSordo of Deckhand, and Amanda Russell of Cream Studios.
We're forever grateful for the supporters of our podcast, and we're always looking for more sponsors. That said, Pixel Retentive is brought to you by the creative gurus at Epic Made. Epic Made is a team of artists and strategists with a mastery of visual storytelling. Our studio makes unforgettable animation and graphic illustration infused with ideas that put money in your pocket. We best serve marketers and brands seeking to engage millennials and nerdy audiences, and some of our favorite clients include Nickelodeon, WWE, and Sci-Fi. Visit getepicmade.com and let's collaborate on your next creative campaign.
So with us today, we have Dave Philar. Did I say that correctly?
You got it.
Nice. So Dave is a footwear designer, a creative director like myself, an artist, podcast host, and a ton more. He has worked with brands around the world, ranging from Nike, Patagonia, New Balance, the U.S. military, and a multitude of artists, athletes, and celebrities. Welcome, Dave. Glad to have you on the podcast, man.
Stoked to be here. Yeah, thank you guys for reaching out and wanting me on the show and just to chop it up about art and creativity.
Absolutely, man.
Yeah, man, we appreciate you coming on. Definitely stoked to have you. And I checked out a little bit of your podcast, so we'll do a shout out on that as well. But what's the name of your podcast again?
An Untold Narrative. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, of course. I will put links to that in the description. But Dave's got a great podcast, interviews a lot of cool creatives, and does some cool shit there. So
love it.
Cool. All right. So before we jump into the meat of today's episode, we like to let our audience get to know you a little bit better. So tell us how long you've been in your industry and what project you are most proud of so far.
I've been in the world of footwear design, I'll say, I'm coming on my 10th year now. So I'm proud to say it's been a decade. I still feel like I'm 22 years old in the industry. So, but yeah, it's been a decade of footwear design. I did a long stint at my former employer for 8 years, and then I've been at my current employer for 2 years. But yeah, I as your intro read, I try not to put myself in a bucket of just footwear design. I think we live in a society where, most people are considered part of this slash generation, as in you do this slash this slash this. And I definitely fall into that. Primarily because I think it educates and informs a lot of the creativity that I'm really good at for my day-to-day job, but also I think just for myself, and it makes me feel a lot better when I do art on the side, or I host my own podcast, or I volunteer, or, I sew and make clothing for myself, or whatever it is that I'm doing. I think that, so I know that the intro is great and you need a place to start, and I'm happy to say I'm a footwear designer because I am, but I like to classify myself as a lot more than that.
Well, I can appreciate that. I categorize that as a createaholic in my own personal manifestation. I made my own couch and make my own shit. I draw my logo on my hat. Is this the one? Yeah, there it is. Like, whatever I can do to make something mine. So I love it. I definitely, you and I hit it up immediately. We met a lot of similarities on that sort of thing. So
yeah. Sure. I think most creatives, like you said, the sort of slash generation. I've never heard that before, but that's hilarious. I think that's true. I mean, I've been Carl's creative director for a decade now, or, at least I've been working with him for that long, and I've been his creative director for at least half of that, if not more.
Yeah.
But I've always had side stuff. Like I've worked on a comic on the side. I've worked on my own professional illustrations on the side. I've worked on side projects and, board games and card games and stuff like that on the side. And I think that it's, like you said, I have a passion for storycraft and like learning the principles of storytelling. And I think, like you said, it all adds to the bucket of what you're capable of doing creatively. And you can kind of use that arsenal in every other facet that you decide to put that creativity toward. And so I think it's actually really beneficial for people to multi-class, as it will, to kind of, I mean, just to kind of diversify their interests in the creative field, especially in creativity.
Yeah.
And actually that kind of segues really nicely into what I want to talk about today, which more specifically is kind of your philosophy or your take on creativity, on art, on design. I took a quick look at your website, and I did notice that you kind of have, at least from my standpoint, maybe a unique take on design philosophy, or on just being an artist and a representative of the creative community. And I wanted to kind of get an idea of what it takes to be, a footwear designer, and like maybe how that's different, how you tackle some of your projects, and just kind of chew the fat a little bit on creativity and the fun stuff that we like to do.
Yeah, I think on creativity as a whole, I think everyone's always looking for the golden or the silver bullet of like how do you stay creative, or like, where do you get your inspiration from? And honestly, I think it's a matter of just trying a bunch of shit and figuring out what you gravitate towards, and then you kind of hone in on it, right? Like I started painting 5 years ago out of necessity when I needed a second job because I was going paycheck to paycheck after I bought a house. And so I like just applied on Indeed to like be an art instructor at like one of those wine bars where you get a bunch of moms who go out for the weekend and just get really drunk, and then they try to paint a painting and they have no artistic talent. Yep. Well, I didn't know how to paint, but I got
my wife and I have been to said wine bars several times. I know exactly what that's like.
Yeah, exactly. And so like it's like I was out of necessity, but I was like, I bet I could paint because I'm creative and I know how to design shoes and I know how to render a 2D image to make it look three-dimensional or partially, right? And so I was like, how different is that from my day-to-day job? And so I picked up those skills really quickly, and you're able to like expand, and then you recognize, oh shit, it's a lot more than just painting on a canvas. It's actually like getting on a stage and articulating a step-by-step instruction to 50 people who don't have any talent. And so like you have to dissect your own work, and then that informs my, day-to-day job where I was managing people, because now I can break down my day-to-day job in a really like concise way because of these extractions that I had from this part-time gig. And you just like, it's weird how you can go down these, and I have like a zillion examples of this where you try one thing for a specific reason or just for fun, and then it leads to benefiting you in a different aspect of your life. And I don't think enough people do that, primarily for the fear of whether it's, failing on themselves or rejection within that own community. So if you're not a painter, or you join a book club, even like, you might be stuttering, or you're not comfortable like reading out loud or whatever it is. But once you get over that, and once you get accustomed, like everybody sucks, right? And so like at the end of the day, like it's not about you being bad at it. Everybody's bad at it when they start, but you don't know how much you'll love something once you try it. And I don't think enough people do that to fuel their own creativity. And that doesn't have to be digital art, footwear design. It doesn't have to be illustration. It could be anything. And so I think as creativity as a whole, like I always go back to like just trying shit. Like I really think it's that fundamentally simple. And then on the footwear design specific side, because I want to loop full circle back to your original question of, for me, it's just a matter of looking at what I'm designing and what I'm creating and who it's for, and what's the why of its existence. Because everybody knows like we don't need another pair of shoes on this planet. Everybody knows we have too much shit. We have too many books behind us. We have, too much crap in our house. And so like, why are we creating the things we're creating? And I want to make sure that when I'm designing it, there's a real purpose and intent behind it. And so whether that's the storytelling, through a collaboration, okay, like, what makes this artist or celebrity's story really special? Why are we choosing the materials we're choosing? What is that narrative, and how does it associate to the product, and what value does it bring to the end consumer? And so I always go back to the why. I think there's, everybody will always quote like Simon Sinek's start with why, because it's so fundamentally true. And once you learn that, it's really easy to just always start with that.
Yeah, 100%.
For sure.
Yeah, it's something.
Go ahead, Ross.
No, go ahead, man. I've been talking.
No, I mean, I can wholeheartedly relate to that. Like it's like creativity at play, right? Experimentation. And you like the more things you learn, the more mediums you do, you find that infusing into other ideas and cross-pollinating, if you will, through the different ways that you express your creativity. It's like whenever I go talk to like some college kids, and try to do my part in giving back, I go back to speak at ODU all the time. I say that all the time, like just try new shit. Like get out of bed and experiment on whatever you can do that you feel like you might have a shot at doing something cool with. And the thing that you sit down and like really lose yourself in for an hour or 2 or 3 and all say like, oh my God, where'd the afternoon go? Do more of that shit. Because clearly there's something there for you that's sparking you, that's getting you excited. And you won't know that until you just kind of test and experiment everywhere.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm on the same page with you.
A lot of creatives, that I've spoken to, they hate the word talent, like it's a magical God-given superpower, right? Like we didn't have to work for. Like whenever someone says you're talented, it's like that means you didn't have to work for how good you are. And the way that I see talent is sort of the ability to pick up something quickly, and skill is the honed practice of that thing. Right. And so you might not know what you're talented at, and you'll never figure that out unless you try a bunch of different things. And like you said, when you find that thing that you sort of lose yourself in, and you sort of figure out, oh, like this just makes sense to me. Like, it doesn't matter how good you are at that thing yet, because no one is good at drawing or at designing or at public speaking or any of that stuff from jump. Like I think people have an innate ineptitude to pick up something quickly. I can't play an instrument to save my life. But I was at a very young age, I was able to kind of figure out that I was good at drawing. And it still took me from, 10 years old to, when I was 21 or something like that, to consider myself a good artist. To actually to have work on a plateau that I considered sellable and professional, right? And that's you taking a talent and increasing your skill level, right? But you'll never know what to focus in on until you try a bunch of stuff and figure out where you're actually talented. Because everyone, I think, has an aptitude to do something. They might have just not found it yet.
Yeah, but also, like, I think the part of the conversation that gets missed a lot, and it's something I speak out about a lot because it really frustrates me, is like hard work will beat talent every single fucking day of the week.
Absolutely.
And like, I don't think enough people are willing to suck shit for long enough periods of time in order to get good at something. And so they might love something, but they're not good at it, and they'll stop. And that, to me, is like, you can potentially have a completely different life for the next, 50 years or whatever you're alive, if you just held on for a little longer. And that part, I think people look at like the immediate gratification of something, and it's so frustrating because I know how long things take. Like, to your point, when I started footwear design, like a lot of it's drawing on paper, like getting your initial ideas down. And so like I still draw on paper first before I go into something digitally. And like when I was in college, like I was not the best drawer. I was like probably like bottom of the barrel in the class of my, my industrial design, class. So it's like, but I've honed in on what my practice and what my speciality is within drawing on paper. And so today I know I'm most confident and comfortable and creative using a thin Sharpie on a white 8.5 by 11. It's not the thin translucent pieces of paper. It's not with pencil. It's not with blue pencil. It's not with fucking microns. It's with a thin Sharpie on white and 8.5 by 11. And it took me a decade to figure out, hey, Dave, you're a lot better at drawing if you use these mediums. But the only way to discover that is to do it over and over and over again and try all the rest of them to learn that you suck at the other ones and you're really good at this one. So yeah, I think it's just like, just work at it. It's like, it's so stupidly simple, and it's so frustrating when people give up so early on in the process. because they like expect things to just happen so much faster than they in reality that they do.
Yeah, I love this. Sorry, just real quick. I love this conversation because it comes up frequently. And the thing that always comes to my mind is the biggest difference between the novice and the master is that the master has failed more times than the novice has even tried, right? And it just speaks directly to that hard work, that experimentation. I love that.
Yeah, I think that it also, bringing it full circle with what I was saying about talent and skill, like that's a perfect example of a situation where you didn't have natural talent in an area, and the only thing that means is that the hill is steeper, right? It just means that you have to try harder to get to the same place as someone who can more naturally pick it up, but it doesn't prohibit you from getting there. It doesn't prohibit you from climbing that hill. And so many people see that it's going to take them longer than someone who is, say, more naturally just sort of clicks better. And
yeah, I mean, but
and they're just unwilling to do it.
Sorry to interject. I answer DMs all the fucking time on Instagram about this, and like I'm always happy to answer, and I respond to every single one. There's not one that I leave unread or don't answer. But like everybody's always like, looking for like, especially footwear design, because it's such a cool industry. Like I'd be lying if I said I didn't have the greatest job on the planet, because like it's cool as shit, man. Like we design sneakers. Like at the end of the day, out of all the problems I have, I draw shoes for a living, right? Like I draw shoes. That's pretty freaking cool. And like everybody, like now that it's exposed, it's hit mainstream media a little bit. There's more publications. They're like, oh, you can go to school for footwear design now. It wasn't the case 10 years ago specifically, or there was very few areas that you could do that. And everybody's reaching out and they're like, Dave, like I just graduated. Like I'm looking for a job, blah, blah, blah. Like here's what I want to do. And then like you start picking away at it, and I'm like, okay, well, what have you done to try to enter that industry? And it's like, oh, well, I've applied on Indeed, I sent some people a couple DMs, okay, but like, can you imagine like if you truly loved this industry and you truly thought this was your purpose on this goddamn planet, and you were meant to be a footwear designer or a graphic illustrator, placeholder, anything.
Sure, yeah. Any placeholder.
Wouldn't you be willing to sacrifice 12 months religiously every day, pinging people, doing everything, sending care packages, whatever it is, to separate you from the pack of sheep that are out there and who may be more talented or skilled than you? But over that long time horizon, even just take 12 months, if you did that every single day or every single week, the chances of you getting a job for the rest of your life, 35, 45 years of your career, I think 1 year of sacrifice is really worth that exchange. Nobody's willing to put in the work for that. And like, that's the conversation I have all the time with these young people. And it's like, I remember how much work I put in, and I'm like, I don't think it's changed. I think the answer is very simple. It's just do the work.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I actually just saw a TikTok of a streamer who was sort of live streaming, then hit like 5 million subscribers or something to that effect. And he said something that's very along the line of kind of what you're talking about now, which is for the first year he was streaming, he streamed to one person, and that was his dad. And he had 365 days to say fuck it, like before he got even one other person, right? And just the sheer determination is going to beat skill or talent every time, because like Carl said, it's more about learning from failure than it is, and just stealing yourself to failure and to the idea like you will eventually do this. I guess you'd call it believing in yourself, or however, whatever cliche thing you want to map to it.
Too stubborn to fail.
Yeah, sure. I mean, but ultimately that's going to beat skill, and skill is going to beat talent.
Yeah.
Because it's a cascading degree of effort.
It's like, yeah.
I have a slightly different saying that I always go back to and I ground myself with is like, I don't need you to believe in me. I need you to believe that I believe in me.
Right.
And that is the difference, right?
I need you to believe in the me that believes in me.
Yeah, it's like because not everybody's going to be in your corner. They're going to see you try, and they're going to see you fail for 12 months, and you're going to be streaming, and they're going to like give up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like, if you like wholeheartedly are like, nah, I'm like so convinced that I can do this, and like probably if you do the work, like obviously you can't be like an idiot about it, and like, what do they say? The definition of insanity is doing the same thing without any different results. Like you need different results, but like I truly think that like self-belief is so valuable and it's underrated. And, I also don't think people believe in themselves enough, which is also a huge problem, in that we could go down the rabbit hole of how we're in a loneliness epidemic and like people just are really struggling. They're constantly comparing themselves to others. That's a huge conversation amongst creatives. The amount of suicide rates are skyrocketing amongst creatives. Like there's a lot that goes into it, but like if people can just ground themselves, I heard Mike Posner, the singer, say this. He's like, dude, I'm so inspiring to myself. And I was like, oh shit. Like imagine if everybody on this planet was their biggest source of inspiration. We'd have such a better society, but everybody's looking for external validation, external inspiration.
Yeah.
I'm waking up every single fucking day knowing like, nah, I'm going to maximize today. And like, I'm going to do everything in my power to do the things that I want to do and the best of my abilities. And I just don't think enough people prioritize that.
That's beautiful, man. I totally agree with that. I started this company. I started in 2006. I quit my full-time job in 2007. Had no fucking clue what I was doing. Just knew that I didn't want to have a job anymore. And I was creative and I was going to run a creative business, studio, agency. I had no fucking clue, right? And it wasn't till 2020 when we got our first national brand. So from 2006 to 2020, we just sort of failed in the right direction. Like, it's like, that's what it takes, right? Like I was eating ramen noodles on food stamps for a decade, like, because I wanted to do this, right? So it really is just believing that you're just on the other side. Like, and for real, like if someone had told me when I started that it was going to take fucking 15 years to get anywhere, like I might not have done it. But like but on the flip side of this, like there's nothing else I could do that would bring me fulfillment. Like it isn't about the money or the accolades. It's also like that introspective conversation, like what's going to bring you happiness, no matter if you're making a bunch of money or no money at all. And like, without that external validation, right? And we're all looking,
a way for everybody to escape that like long form conversation is just ask yourself a simple question: if I died tomorrow, would I be happy? What have you done today, yesterday, in recent times? And if you died tomorrow, would you be happy? And if the answer is no, then you seriously got some work to do. Today, if I ask myself that question, I'm fucking so stoked. Like, I'm good. Like, honestly, this podcast ends and I walk outside and I die, I'm stoked. I've lived a lifetime a few times. And, like, I know that's a very, very challenging thing to say publicly because everyone's going to come out of the woodwork and start chirping me. But, like, it's the truth, right? And you need to have that conversation. Just ask yourself that question. And it's a yes or no answer. And so you work on it, right? If the answer is no, or even if you are a little gray, maybe you're like, I have some good days and I have some bad days. Okay, well, what can you do to make every day a great day? It's like, reflect on what happened today. What did I like? What did I not like? How do I focus more on the things that I liked? And you chip away at it, right? And over a decade, over 15 years, like you said, you'll eventually figure it out, right? It's a pretty simple math equation, right? It's like add this, subtract this. It's like, I don't know, we could like subtract the friends that are douchebags, like focus on the good, like, I don't know. It's honestly all just a simple math equation.
It's really
easy to be done.
Yeah.
It can be done in percentages too. That's like a lot of people, they balk at that advice because they're like, oh, well, I have X, Y, and Z external factor that I can't just do this thing, right? But I was telling Carl, like, if you just, again, taking it back to illustration because that's my thing, but like if you drew one line on a page every day, you would still eventually get stuff done, as opposed to just worrying about the fact that you're never going to be a professional illustrator and just like, hoping that it'll happen at some point, right? And, to Carl's point, like, you do have to fail in the right direction. Like, you could do the same wrong thing forever, right? Like, you could continuously fail in the wrong direction and not decide to educate yourself and not decide to improve forever. But if you continue to, if you give a shit basically about what it is you're trying to accomplish, and you actually seek out ways to move the needle, any progress that you make is going to be more beneficial than hoping that one day you'll get the black and white switch where you'll just be able to do this as your full-time job forever because like it landed in your lap.
Yeah, wishful thinking.
Right.
Right? Like that doesn't happen. Yeah. This is good. I really like this. I hope this sparks somebody listens to this and is like, you know what? I'm gonna fucking take action. Like just one step. It all adds up, right? And then with that one line thing, Ross, like the idea there is obviously one line doesn't do anything, right? But if you commit to starting, just like I'm gonna try one line. It's like I'm gonna do one push-up. Well, if you really want to get good at push-ups, if you do that first one, you'll be like, oh, well, I got 5 more, right? And the next thing you know, you're doing 30, 40, 50 push-ups. It's the same consciousness with everything, for sure. So,
absolutely. All right, so we do have a little bit less time than normal this time around, so we are coming up a little bit on time. Before we wrap up, Dave, I did want to ask you a last question. Same question we ask all of our podcast guests. Is there anyone or anything in your career that you'd like to shout out to the audience? Maybe it's a mentor, valuable resource, favorite client. I mean, we've talked a lot about, inspirational concepts for creativity in general. But just if you have an external source to add, we'd be happy to hear it.
Oh, man. So it's tough. I'm probably I'm not going to give people just like go listen to this podcast because again, it's like or read this book and it's going to transform your life because everything ultimately just comes back to we're in an era where people are like they want to just like read these Instagram quotes and then just reshare them and they think their life's going to change and it's like it's not like or you read a book and you shit's going to happen and it's not and it's like. So it's tough. I really go back to the whole conversation of just action and doing things. And so, but in terms of like shout outs, like one of my best friends, Che, like he's been such a superior, grounding mechanism and human for me throughout my entire, my entire time I've lived in Worcester, Massachusetts. So over 8 years I've known him now. The conversation around mentorship is really interesting. I do a few things around mentorship myself now because I never grew up with one. And so I think I'm probably the wrong person to like give a shout out to a mentor because I've never really had one. But, there are a number of platforms. I'll give a shout out to my friend Kenny Hansen. He has a platform called Mentor Pass. So people can look into that. It's actually a fantastic website where you can buy credits and speak to anybody in a lot of different professions, whether that's e-commerce, whether that's marketing, whether that's creativity, and you can book time with them. And so if you're just starting a business or you're just starting out on your own, like people don't know, a lot of times people get like befuddled and they're like, I don't know where to start and I don't know who to ask and I don't have a mentor. There's this platform now and like I am on that platform. So if anybody actually likes what I say, you could go book time with me there. So like there's a lot of resources. I'm a big believer in YouTube University and like just watching content and like really what comes into your, like, if you're looking for inspiration, you're looking for motivation, you're looking for change, like surrounding yourself with the right content is has fundamentally changed my life. I don't listen, to the news anymore. I haven't listened to the news in like 5+ years.
Yeah.
I've completely excommunicated any negativity in my life like that. I only listen to YouTube videos or podcasts that are really positive and that like inspire or I learn something from them. And so I'll do that while I'm working. I recommend, well, like people should do that with whatever works for them. Right. But like, if you're expecting a different outcome in your life than what you've been doing, then you have to start changing something. Usually that's the environment or the people or the things that you're consuming around you that occupy your time. And I just think there's little things that people can do. You could start removing, maybe instead of seeing that friend that you've had since high school that like, okay, you've been together for 15 years, but they're really not adding any more value to your life, but you should probably start slowly pulling away from them because they don't believe in the same things you believe in anymore. And there's nothing wrong with that. They had a time and a place in your life. Cool. Mazel tov. Excommunicate them. They're not bringing value to you. I think everybody's just like so focused on like holding on to the past. And it's like, what are you waiting for? Start your life. Like, we're on the adventure of our fucking lives, and people want to waste time and dilly-dally and scroll Instagram and do the fucking things that is not beneficial. And I'm like, I don't know what to say or to give them a platform to inspire them to make change. They have to do that internally. Yeah. It's all internally. And so the biggest, greatest resource or person that I could shout out is one, my parents, for sure. We immigrated from Poland when I was really young, so I definitely wouldn't be a footwear designer. I'd be some farmer in Poland, like with no money. So shout out to my parents, but like, it's just like, just believe. I don't know, man. It's just, it comes down to yourself. Like it really does. And I'm happy to. I got a few more minutes, so like it doesn't have to be the last question. We could keep riffing for a few more minutes.
Totally fine, man. Yeah, no, dude, I totally get that. So I'm, on my dad's side, my family's immigrants from Greece, and I'm second generation American. It's the same kind of consciousness though. Like they came, like I think about that a lot in the story of entrepreneurship, and like a lot of immigrants when they came over from other countries didn't have a choice other than to be an entrepreneur because no one wanted to hire them because back 50, 60, 70, 80 years ago, like people came over in herds from different countries because there was something going wrong in their country, and America was the land of opportunity, right? So there's bulk groups of others coming over, like they get ostracized, right? Like that was the us and them mentality. We still see that, manifest as racism and all hosts of other versions of us and them kind of things. But like they didn't have a choice other than to start their own business and be their own person and provide for themselves. So I think a lot of that like is in my DNA, particularly. Like I don't think I ever had a chance at being happy and working for somebody else in a traditional like 9-to-5 type of thing. So it's same kind of consciousness there.
Yeah, but like I mean, you can't like the immigrant mentality is really, really special, and I definitely attest a lot of my work ethic to that, and from watching my parents struggle growing up, and not speaking a language and moving here, and like it's just like how do you fathom moving to another country not speaking that language like 30 years ago? So right. Now you go over to Europe today and they speak English, right? Like right. It's not the same, people. It's like you come to a place, like I'm talking, drop yourself in like mainland China. They don't speak English there. I've been. They speak Mandarin. So yeah, like, imagine doing that and then just expecting to figure it out. It's like, that's the most terrifying shit. And like, you put yourself up against the wall like that, you're going to figure out a lot about yourself, and you're going to figure out actually what you're capable of. And I think that people need to do. Put yourself in a lot more uncomfortable positions because you can figure out so much about yourself. I actually started doing a solo vacation by myself. I do it once a year and put myself in a place that usually doesn't speak English, and I don't turn on my cell service. And it's the most uncomfortable like thing you can do. But my God, is it like exhilarating? It's like, you don't have Google Maps. You got to look at a paper map. You got to like try to navigate this place. It's like, it's so fucking scary, but it's so cool.
Thank you. Dude, I had that thought literally like an hour ago. I'm like, so I'm at my friend's house in New York City, and like I've never been to this particular part of New York. And like, I'm like on my phone trying to get around like subways. It's just like, how the fuck did anyone even do this before you had a GP? Like your phone just tells you everything. Like this is a whole other type of adventure. You had to like actually plan. Like I got off a plane this morning at 6 a.m, in New Jersey with no plan. Just knew I needed to be in Manhattan at some point and run this podcast from somewhere. I had no idea where I was even going to be. So like, here we are. It's fun. It's an adventure, right? Like it's beautiful.
Yeah, man. Actually, we had a guest several months back. Fred Siebert, who actually had similar advice where he was saying that, I don't know if he said this on or off after the podcast, but he was telling us like, if you want something, especially something that's sort of contradictory to the way that you're currently living your life or your current career or whatever, you're never going to succeed in getting that thing unless you have to. Like, unless you put yourself in a position where that is the only option for you to do it. And that's like, it's very similar to like you dropping yourself in the middle of nowhere or in the middle of a foreign country where you have to figure it out, because your other option is like be lost and kidnapped somewhere. There is no other option, right? Yeah. And so, I'm not necessarily advocating for people to just like quit their job and free fall and like,
No, but like you might not be, but I am. I
mean, that's fair. I mean, like that's what I did, right? Like that's how I got. So full disclosure, that's how I got into this industry. I was 21 years old. I was making like 70 grand or what have you, working for Sprint Mobile, right? And as I was managing a store, and it was basically only up from there, right? I was going to make three figures by the time I was like 20, right? Yeah. And so but I hate, like, it was awful. Like I was like, I had graduated by that point. I just graduated with a degree in media art and animation and digital painting. And I was like, I don't want to fucking do this anymore. And so I just stopped doing it. And I only had like I was being stupid with money because I was 21, and I only had like 10 grand in my bank account. And then I joined Carl, and I think the first year I worked with Carl, I made like $500.
Yeah. It was the second year we put you on like a base pay of like $300 a month or something.
Yeah, I was like 2 years in, but like, yeah, it was a horrendous free fall, right, for years. And I had just finished paying off the credit card debt I had accrued from that free fall. But I have also been working in the industry for the last 10 years, right? Like I made a move from working at a job that I don't like to taking a huge risk to, 10 years later, I'm not dead and I'm doing the thing that I wanted to do to at least some degree, right? Like, there's an even greater evolution of that for my career, maybe in the next 10 years. But again, that takes a similar commitment to make sure that evolves in that direction. Yeah, I mean, I as much as I want to advise people to implode their lives and do what they want to do, I know that it doesn't work for everybody. But it's going to work for way more people than you think it's going to work.
I'd say if you're single and have no extra responsibilities and no kids, and you're not happy, you're not going to get less responsibilities in the next 5 to 10 years. Like,
correct, yeah.
Blow the shit up and reset. Like, you gotta, whatever, you might get behind on some credit cards or in debt or what. Like, if you're in your early 20s, like, now's the time for you to like take.
That's what bankruptcy is for.
Yeah, I mean, honestly. Like, you get to file bankruptcy. Like, we won't get into like bad and debt advice, but like, anyways, cool. I think this has been really inspirational, David. I'm really glad that you jumped on a chat, Dave. I don't know why I keep calling you David. Sorry. And this is super fun. And I do want to give a huge shout out to Ian Kane and Boston Blockchain. That's where we met last year, and it was actually in Quincy, Massachusetts.
That's right.
Yep. Yeah, it's a super cool space. We were both panelists there, different panels, but I just thought your panel was cool. And you noticed my 5-figure toe shoes that I religiously wear. That was your previous employer. I don't know if you mentioned that directly or not, but I hope that's okay, right?
Yeah, totally fine.
Yeah. Anyways, good people over there. At least now, it's just it's too late. We'll bleep it out. I don't know. Cool. All right, well, I know you got a jet, David, and we got a jet as well. So thank you, everyone, for checking us out. And as always, it was always a fun chat, and we will see you all on the next episode.
We've been talking with footwear designer and artist extraordinaire Dave Philar. You can check out his website at davidphilar.com. But if listeners want to follow up with you directly, where should they go before...
Yeah, my website, my Instagram, all my handles across. I'm on every platform. I'm pretty positive, except Snapchat. I don't use Snapchat. But it's David.Philar or David Philar, pretty much across the board on everything. So feel free to ping me.
Heck yeah. Thanks so much, David. I really appreciate you being on, man.
Yeah, man. I really appreciate it. Take it easy, everybody.
Thanks.
We really hope you enjoyed the show. Please like and subscribe to join us on our next journey through the world of art and business on the Pixel Retentive Podcast.